Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Emerge Wrestling Showcase. The dust is still settling from EMERGE12 Consequences, as is my voice. I still don't have all of it back yet from that event, but we are going to power through. We are 2 days removed from the event, and what an event it was, Richey.
It was an absolutely fantastic event. For that being the first time of me sitting ringside, and of course being back in the broadcasting game with you, Casey, it was an adrenaline rush.
Absolutely, and the wrestlers, the fights in the ring, did nothing but add to the adrenaline of that night, and it started out quick.
Oh, it
with
did.
Billy Mattern versus King Crush in a match where this match is a match you'll be able to see next week on Showcase exclusively. And these two guys gave the fans that came to that match, the fans that came early, gave them a show.
Oh, definitely they did. And that being the first time we've seen King Crush in just a few months.
Yeah.
It was really impressive for him to have a great comeback.
And Billy Mattern, I said this before on our preview show. I said that I wouldn't be surprised if Billy Mattern won the match. And he ended up doing exactly that, taking advantage of King Crush crashing and burning there with that moonsault.
Now, I do love King Crush. Don't get me wrong. Great guy, has a lot of respect for me. But for that being the first time I've seen Billy Mattern wrestle, he kind of earned me over a little bit.
Yeah,
he was a very brilliant wrestler, and he knew how to get it to his advantage.
Yeah, he's incredibly impressive in the ring. He moved around with a fluidity that I haven't seen in quite a while from wrestlers, and I think, if anything, he out-King Crushed King Crush, if that's possible. He did all of the things that, King Crush generally does. He was just on that night, I think, a step better than King Crush, and ended up beautiful elbow drop to finish the match.
Yeah.
And I'm not positive I've ever seen anybody since Macho Man Randy Savage get so high with that elbow drop and bring it down so beautifully. But we will stop talking about that match there, because next week you can see that right here on Emerge Wrestling Showcase. Moving into EMERGE12 Consequences, Jordan Cage and ATM, the new team of Pretty Perfect, versus Manse and Bobby Black. Fantastic way to start out the night, Richey. And Jordan Cage and ATM, as this is the first match that we disagreed on.
Yeah.
I thought that the teamwork of Jordan Cage and ATM would prevail. As it turns out, it did. What did you see from these guys? Did these guys impress you?
They definitely did impress me. I mean, their teamwork was very cooperative. They worked well together. For this was their first time working together. Am I correct?
In EMERGE.
Yes.
They have worked together elsewhere.
Well, the way they work together, I've not really seen teamwork style so unique.
Yeah.
To how they were.
I think they execute things that are tag team staples, but in new ways.
Yeah.
For instance, cutting off the ring. I don't think I've ever seen a ring so beautifully cut off where, for a large portion of the match, either Manse or Bobby Black were not able to get the tag to their partner because they were stuck in that corner in that first, quadrant of the ring.
No, I did count probably Jordan Cage and ATM. They tagged in each other probably about 15 times.
Yeah, it was a high tag count from them, and it seemed too like when Manse and Bobby were able to tag each other in somehow beautifully, Cage and ATM were able to cut them off.
Oh yeah, and that's one thing that started to slowly earn my respect for them. They worked. I don't even know how to put it, Casey. I'm still like in shock over that match. I was not expecting that at all.
Yeah, it's definitely a great way to start the night. Jordan Cage and ATM, and we heard that this match might have future title implications heading in. Turns out it was a number one contenders match for the tag team championships, and Jordan Cage and ATM, the team of Pretty Perfect, they are your new number one contenders for the tag team championships, and it looks to be an exciting match, you would think, next month at EMERGE 13 Outbreak. And later on in the night, they got involved again, although we'll get to that a little bit later.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this team, though, of Manse Warner and Bobby Black, because Bobby Black has been here for a long time, and Manse Warner is a newcomer, but for that, they utilized a lot of tag team maneuvers. They did a lot of stuff working very well together. Do you think that the veteran and the new kid have a future together as a team?
I think they do, Casey. I mean, they did kind of have a rough start, but they started to pick it up towards the end. It turns out it wasn't enough. So maybe with a little more practice and a little more teamwork, they might be able to probably take down Jordan Cage and ATM eventually.
Absolutely. I think that's an interesting thing about EMERGE, where you get these pairings like Manse Warner and Bobby Black, where these guys had probably never met before that night, and it turns out they might have this future together as a team. Props to Dave Dynasty for scouting that, for signing the match. Kenneth James, Kyle Maverick, and Anthony Totelli faced each other next in a fantastic three-way match. Probably one of the best three-way dances I've seen in a while. Kenneth James getting the win.
Kenneth James is probably one of my favorite wrestlers right now. He is a very ruthless guy. He's always dangerous, and if he sees a weakness, he will exploit that to the fullest extent. And that's one thing that won me over when I watched his match against Have Mercy Percy.
Just a few weeks ago here on Showcase. And Kenneth James, I've been very outspoken. I don't like the way that he cheats many times to win his matches,
I don't even think he cheats.
He does that. He cheats. But I have got to give him props on a personal level. Early on in the match, he riled up both Kyle Maverick and Anthony Totelli, slapped them both in the face to start out the match.
And then that instantly got him thrown out of the ring.
And he stayed there, which was brilliant.
Because he was letting Kyle Maverick and Anthony Totelli fight it out. He was letting them wear themselves down, and then whenever he thought it was time for him to get back in, he would jump right back at the ring and
not only that,
take the win.
Kyle Maverick we had only seen once before this. Anthony Totelli we hadn't seen at all. Fantastic opportunity to scout your opponent in the middle of the match without having to feel them out, because a lot of times in the beginning of matches you'll see a lot of hip tosses and grapple moves as guys are just trying to figure out each other's style. Kenneth James got to do that without taxing on his body. Let's take a second, though. In particular, Kyle Maverick was very impressive, but Anthony Totelli blew me away, as I figured that he might. This guy, I think, has a very promising future in EMERGE.
I think he does, too. I mean, the flowing Samoan, he was very flowing in the ring. I know that was a bad pun, but I'm going to stick by it.
It wasn't even a pun. You just repeated the...
I don't care. He moved around the ring probably faster than I've ever seen anyone do before. He was very mobile, and that's one thing that I started to like about him. It just wasn't enough when it came down to the final tag.
Yeah, and you know, Anthony is a bigger guy, so to move around like that, being a bigger guy, which... Samoans are famous in wrestling for being bigger guys who are able to move, but Anthony's got that middleweight kind of body style, and he moves around as such, and being able to utilize things like the Samoan drop and chops, and he hit a super kick at one point during the match, Samoan side kick. the guy has all of the tools, I think, in order to be a star in Emerge for some time to come. As far as stars right now, though, the next match, in one of, I think, the matches of the night, the 8-Bit Punks defended their newly won championships against Sage Phillips and Cole Roderick, and the 8-Bit Punks were, I think, impressive. I think they used the mind games to their advantage. For instance, getting Chris Lowe to ring the bell multiple times.
That was quite impressive. I wasn't expecting that, but
yeah, you could tell Cole and Sage and even referee Jason Stone were pretty confused by that, but it ended up working to the 8-Bit Punks' advantage, and they got an advantage early. One moment in the match that I think we'll all remember for a long time is Damian Cole pressed Aaron Anarchy over his head, threw him over the top ropes onto Sage Phillips and Cole Roderick, and took them out. And that I think was very impressive.
That's what won the match.
It pretty much ended up sealing the deal for them. Definitely, I think, wore down Sage Phillips and Cole Roderick. I mean, when a body gets up that high and lands on you, it's going to take a lot out of you.
And I mean, Cole Roderick had already experienced that a few weeks ago on Showcase, where
although Aaron didn't even get the height in that one that he got this particular time.
Oh, no.
Sage and Cole Roderick, though, very impressive.
For the first time of them working together, great teamwork, Casey. Now, I don't know how to really put it for them. I mean, they earned my respect a little bit, but the 8-Bit Punks, they have everything when it comes to respect for me. I have nothing but pure 100% respect for the 8-Bit Punks. They're cocky, they're funny, and they know how to work the system.
Yeah, I think it's interesting how the 8-Bit Punks managed to be super confident and super cocky, but in somehow an endearing way. But Sage Phillips and Cole Roderick, again, I think bright futures, and I believe we'll hear from them a couple weeks from now on the Lowdown. And you know, they had some interesting things to say. We were there. Be watching for that episode of the Lowdown with the voice from Emerge, Christopher Lowe. And Sage Phillips and Cole Roderick, it seems like, increasingly have a chip on their shoulder.
Yeah, I feel like they might feel like they're being discriminated against just because they're young.
Yeah, I think there's a certain inferiority complex there, but it'll be interesting to see where they go, and hopefully, in my mind, Sage and Cole get this chip on their shoulder, and it's able to help them focus more and be more ruthless in the ring, because that, as they said during the early 2000s, the ruthless aggression is a lot of times the key to winning matches. Either way, though, fantastic future for these guys. Moving on to the future, Jordan Cage and ATM at the end of this match made their intentions known, their intentions being taking the titles off of the 8-Bit Punks, and they interfered after this match was already over. And I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this, because Cage and ATM are your favorite young team, and the 8-Bit Punks are your favorite team overall. I would think that because next month you would figure they will get their shot. So what are you thinking as far as this match is concerned?
I'm very torn, Casey. I mean, I love the 8-Bit Punks. That's a very well-known fact. I announced my love for them on the last showcase, and sitting ringside, you saw my reaction when they both came out. I was giddy. I was happy. I didn't know how to really react. And then when Jordan Cage and ATM came out after they won me over with their match, I didn't know who to root for. I didn't know what was going on.
Well, I mean, you're supposed to be an impartial journalist. You're not really supposed to root for anybody, but, you know.
I know, but it was so hard not to root.
Either way, next month this looks to be an incredibly entertaining match. I can tell you're conflicted.
I am.
One person, however, that you're not conflicted on whatsoever is Nicki Mariani.
Yeah.
And Nicki and Karma tore the house down in the official kickoff to the women's division. Before we actually get to the match, I want your reaction to the bombshell announcement from CEO Dave Dynasty, the fact that there will be an entire women's division in Emerge, complete with a women's championship moving forward. What do you think about that?
I think it's going to be a great thing to come to Emerge. It's going to give Nicki Mariani another chance to expand her kingdom and continue to hold the title of the Queen of Mean.
So you think that Nicki's going to run roughshod over the entire division?
I think she will. I think she can have a few more people to recruit to Beauty and the Beast. And that will just keep her kingdom expanding. And
that's true. And moving on to the match, saw a lot of impressive things from Nicki in the beginning stages of the match. She definitely threw Karma around a little bit. She had the power advantage. Karma, as we discussed before, had a speed advantage, and she used that to her advantage. I think it was interesting though to see Nicki isn't the kind of person that gets her boys thrown out, and Jacob Johns ended up getting thrown out. It looked like Nicki was a little bit flabbergasted almost the entire match. Do you think that she doesn't belong in the ring maybe?
I think she does belong in the ring as well as anyone at Emerge. I feel like they all have a great shot when it comes to being in the ring. Nicki just... I don't know. I feel like she is better at ringside, but she still won me over with the match. I feel like, in my opinion, she was the true winner.
So even though she did not win, she won.
In my opinion, yes.
That's typical. That's something that Nicki would probably say herself. Moving to the end of the match, though, it was an interesting ending as Jacob Johns, who had already been thrown out, came back out as Nicki was regaining control of the match, kind of. But Chris Calibre ended up taking out Jacob Johnson. They fought all the way to the back, which is interesting to me. I said on our preview show and on the lowdown last week that Chris Calibre and Jacob Johns, that a lot of that match I thought would depend on how the Nicki Karma match went, but it turns out it was a little bit of the reverse as Jacob Johns and Chris Calibre got physically involved with one another at ringside.
Yeah, that was a very interesting thing. I know my heart did stop for a minute when I saw both Jacob Johns coming out and then Chris Calibre shortly after him. It was something I really was not expecting, and it threw me off completely. That's when I stopped talking for the commentary, and I just didn't know what to do. Yeah,
so Nicki ended up being distracted, and Karma ended up pulling out the win. Very impressive victory for Karma. Moving on to the next match, Jeremy Hadley and Donnie Idol. I said this would be my sleeper match of the night. I said that these two would have a war, and I've got to admit I was disappointed in the outcome of it. I got excited when Dave Dynasty laid down the law that Christopher Icon would be suspended for 30 days and that he wouldn't be there at the event. I thought we were going to get a fair fight, but as it turns out, Icon ended up appearing in a video distracting Donnie Idol, and Jeremy Hadley ended up getting the win via countout because Donnie didn't get back into the ring by the count of 10.
And I feel like that was a very smart move on Icon's part to help his boy Jeremy Hadley out. It was working the system, wasn't technically cheating, and it really just worked.
Yeah, definitely exploited a loophole there. Either way, though, I don't think this issue is over. We got some post-match comments from Donnie Idol, which you'll see next week here on Emerge Wrestling Showcase, and he's not happy about the way things went down. I think this is far from over, and hopefully the battle that I thought this match would be, we will get in the future. But a battle that absolutely lived up to my expectations was Chris Calibre and Jacob Johns, and we both picked Chris Calibre to win in his first title defense, and he did so. Interesting matchup. It was about what we expected. Chris Calibre fought to get Jacob Johns off of his feet, and once he finally did get Jacob Johns off his feet, the idea was keeping him off of his feet.
And like you stated before, it takes a lot to get Jacob off his feet.
That's true.
It's usually a good 4 or 5 minutes before someone can actually get.
At least, yeah.
We saw it a lot quicker, in my opinion, or what it felt like to me. It felt like once Chris got him down, that's where Jacob just lost his advantage.
Yeah, and I think Jacob Johns was a little bit distracted by what had happened earlier that night. After the Nicki Karma match, it seems like Beauty and the Beast is beginning to implode. Because, Bad came out to try to comfort Nicki after the loss, and she immediately began yelling at them.
And they ended up quitting.
Yeah. Well, she ended up trying to fire them, but not before they quit. So, something interesting from Team Bad. The crowd began to get behind them as they left that night. And do you think that Nicki is in trouble as far as her empire is concerned?
As of right now, not really, especially with Dave announcing that he is going to have a complete women's division. It gives a chance for Nicki to replace Bad with a new team. So that way, her kingdom won't necessarily lose people, but she is gaining someone.
All right, that could be interesting. Chris Calibre ended up getting the win over Jacob Johns in impressive fashion. And moving on to the main event here, shenanigans galore in this particular match. Apollo Star and JD Mariani. The interesting thing about this match, we both picked JD Mariani to win. Apollo Star ended up getting the victory, but it was by DQ. Still your champion, JD Mariani. And I think that is where the events from earlier on in the night really began to catch up to Nicki, and it looked like she was losing it a little bit. It looked like their plan was not coming to fruition. Nicki lost against Karma, Jacob Johns lost against Chris Calibre, and there was interference. It seemed like they didn't know what was going on. To their credit, JD and Apollo put together a fantastic match. It was a battle between these two guys, but it ended up being that Jacob Johns interfered and Apollo got a disqualification victory, which, like I said earlier, Nicki Mariani is not the kind of person that gets her boys disqualified.
But it seems like she did a good job at that.
And you got to wonder if this is part of her plan all along, or you never know exactly what's going on in her head. But
all I know is she'll have a great outcome, whether it be a part of her plan or she just uses this to her advantage.
Either way, after the match, JD and Jacob Johns beat up Apollo Star pretty severely, and at that point, in probably a moment that you were not prepared for in your first night in the booth,
I was terrified.
A table was pulled out from under the ring.
My headset
right
was off,
next to
Casey.
us.
My drink was in my hand. I didn't even realize I had it until we were done.
That's true. Well, I mean, you got to take care of the Mountain Dew. The Mountain Dew is the most important thing.
By far.
But table ended up being set up, and
JD was going to put Apollo through the table.
yeah, it looked like JD was about to hit his swanton off the top through the table onto not onto Apollo Star. My bad.
And then Dave Dynasty came out and announced that if JD were to put Apollo through the table,
Yeah,
he would lose his title.
and Apollo would be crowned the new champion.
Exactly.
And it was at that point that I think JD stopped, but he was not happy.
He started to, it looked like, target Dave.
Yes, and we've seen this a couple times. A few months ago, he backed Dave up into a corner in the middle of the ring in order to get his title shot against Donnie Idol. And, props to Dave. Dave doesn't tolerate it. He said, if either one of you put a finger on me, I will fire all three of you. But this set up an interesting match, as originally, Dave said, next month at EMERGE13 Outbreak, we're going to get you and Jacob Johns versus Apollo and a partner of his choosing in a tag team match. But as JD Mariani got closer and closer to Dave and yelled at him more and more and more, I think something snapped within Dave Dynasty, and he made a decision to make it more interesting next month.
Yes, he did. And that's when he announced that the tag match would not just be a tag match, but it would also be a tables match.
Since JD wants to put somebody through a table so badly, give him the chance to. Now, who knows? Who would have any idea who Apollo Star is going to pick for his... there are a lot of great stars in EMERGE. Then again,
yes.
Apollo Star is a veteran. Do you think he might have somebody outside of EMERGE that he'll pick?
I feel like he would, Casey. I mean, there are a bunch of great people in EMERGE that he would have a great chance of teaming up with. He could pick one of the boys from Bad. He could pick one of the 8-Bit Punks. He might have someone on the outside, though, and that's what I'm interested in to see.
Yeah, I mean, we talked with Totelli and Manse about the unknown factor, and the unknown factor is certainly apparent in this match. Hopefully, within the next couple of weeks, we'll be able to catch up with Apollo and find out who he's choosing in this tag team tables match. But as we move into the next event, just in general, a lot of mysteries here in EMERGE. Now, we've been running these, for lack of a better word, teasers on Showcase for about the last month, where I've just been receiving these weird emails from Dave Dynasty. It just says, put this at the end of the show. And it's teasing up to something about EMERGE13 Outbreak. And, of course, Outbreak is the name of a title. And I have no idea what this next show is going to be structured like. Hopefully by next week,
we'll find out.
Would be my goal.
Yeah.
I'll have to get in touch with Dave Dynasty and see if we can get a camera to him and see what is going on, because either way, I think it would have to involve the Outbreak title. So if you're Chris Calibre, who you've got to be, I mean, not shaking in your boots, but you've got to be very, very intrigued about what is happening here.
And did you mean JD Mariani or did you mean Chris Calibre?
I did mean Chris Calibre. He's the Outbreak champion.
He is the Outbreak champion. I forgot about that. We were talking about titles, and
yeah, it's easy to get them confused.
I think we have a lot of things in store for Outbreak. I'm kind of nervous to see what's going to be up, but knowing Dave, he has something up his sleeve.
Yeah, it always seems like he does have something up his sleeve, and I guess that brings us to the end of EMERGE12. Overall, what did you think of the event?
For it being my first event where I got to sit live ringside, I was very impressed. It was an adrenaline rush after the show was over and we were taking down lights and everything. I was still hyped.
Yeah, I could see that, and I have sat ringside or run camera or what have you at multiple shows, and I think this show was the best show that Emerge has put on yet, and it's just this thing. I mentioned at Emergence Day, I was talking to one of our camera guys, Tortuga, shout out Tortuga, and he was talking about how it gets better and better every month, and it seems like it's continuing to do so. So Emerge 13 Outbreak coming up next month.
And I want to give a shout out to Tortuga. Tortuga was such a nice guy for the first.
Tortuga's awesome.
I was having an anxiety attack, and he was like, "Hey, it's gonna get easier. I promise, man. Anxiety, we all have it."
Yeah.
And during both the intermissions, he would come up to me and he was like, "Dude, how you holding up? Anything I can do?" I was like, "Tortuga, you're just one of the nicest people.
Yeah.
Thank you so much."
Shout out, I guess a major shout out to Tortuga here as we end Emerge Wrestling Showcase. But either way, this was a fantastic event, and I cannot wait until Emerge 13
and
coming
not
up
to
next
mention
month.
that the show was sold out.
Yes, Emerge sold out yet again, and it's this interesting thing where I heard a couple of people say it's not just hype. And it's not.
It's not.
Emerge Wrestling is, in my opinion, not just being somebody who works for Emerge, but being a fan. Emerge is the best wrestling show in the state of Indiana, as far as I'm concerned, and I cannot wait until Emerge 13 Outbreak. And next week here on Showcase, we begin the build-up. Next week, we will have exclusive thoughts from Donnie Idol. Next week, we will have Billy Mattern and King Crush. And next week, we will have Jordan Cage and ATM versus Manse Warner and Bobby Black from EMERGE12 Consequences. So it's going to be an absolutely fantastic show. It will release on Valentine's Day. So I get to spend my Valentine's Day with you, which should be, get your hands off of me.
It's a love-hate relationship.
Until next time, Emerge fans. I'm Casey Johnson.
I'm Richey Stevens. Have a good night.
Just keep your hands off me.